Hi students, good evening. Welcome to this video session. I remain Samuel Dominic Chupu Emeka, aka Samdam for Peace. Welcome back. This is a list part 2, continuation from where we stopped yesterday. Before we continue with the Codio list, Codio exercises, we did this in part 1. Let us discuss just few important methods that we need to know before we proceed to solve the rest of the problems. Please, it is very important that you have viewed part 1 prior to viewing part 2. Very, very important. So let's say our virtues list. Let's make our list again. Virtues list. We have love, faith, charity, peace. Okay. So if we let's say we want to let's say we have another one. Let's say you were asking your students name the virtues they know, and somebody said wealth. Somebody said wealth, and then another person said prudence. Another person says wisdom. Okay, so we discussed some methods yesterday. This is a first element, index 0, second element, index 1, third element, index 2, fourth element, index 3, fifth element, index 4, sixth element, index 5, seventh element, index 6. So we discussed those in a list part 1. Okay. We can remove. Okay, we can remove an element from the list. We can remove an element from the list. So somebody said, mention wealth, and then the teacher says, no, wealth is not a virtue. So they now said, okay, remove wealth from the list. Assuming the teacher said, okay, wealth is not a virtue, remove wealth from the list. Okay, so you could do virtues dot remove, and you now remove wealth. That is first way. Okay, first way you can remove, first way to remove an element. So you could do virtues dot remove, and you just put wealth, and then you can say print virtues. Okay, now let's come here also and say print virtues, so you see it, and then you run that, and you see it has removed wealth. You look at this list now, it's removed wealth. Now another way you could do it, I'm going to comment this out. Another way you could do it is second way to remove an element from the list. So right now, if you run the list, it just says the virtues right now, okay? Because I commented this out. Another way you could do it is to say virtues dot remove. And you could also, you remove it by element in the list. You could remove it by the element in the list. You could also remove it by the index. You notice that virtues is index, that wealth Virtues is the list. Wealth is an element 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is the fifth element, but the fourth index. So you could remove it by element and you could remove it by index. Okay, this one, first way to remove an element, you can say by element. Second way to remove an element from the list, by index. You could also remove it by index. And then you can now say print virtues. Okay, and you run it and it's removed it. It removed well. Okay, we are going to, because there are so many methods that you would need to know. There are so many methods you would need to know. Later on, we'll discuss more as we do more videos on lists. Another thing I would like to talk about is that you can, rather than removing it, I'm going to now paste this. I'm going to now cut this. And I'm saving it in this text file. Like I said, if you want this text file, let me know. And these are actually for my, for mainly my students, mainly. If you want the text files, just let me know. Use your school email, please. Now, another thing I want us to learn before we solve problems is we can, rather than removing it, we can remove it, we can remove and replace. We can replace. Okay, we can replace an element in the list. Like, let's say you want more, you don't want to remove. Well, it's actually removing, but you're replacing it with something else. Okay, replace an element in the list. So, as you can see here, we really don't have, as I'm recording this video, we kind of don't have dot replace. If you type in, because sometimes you can play with all this. If you say dot replace, okay, you don't see dot replace. You see that? So what you could do is, this is what you can do. You want to replace wealth. You want to replace wealth because the teacher said, okay, wealth is not a virtue. So you now want to replace wealth. So remember, you replace by index. Okay, replace by index. Replace by index. Index is very, very important. Indices. Now, like I said in the previous video, index is singular, indices is plural. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth element, index 4. So you could say, you could just do virtues. Of course, virtues 4 gives you if you say print virtues 4, it gives you wealth. If we do that, you see that it gives you wealth. So what you could now do is, we just say virtues, we put that 4, and we just assign it to joy. Okay, happiness. There are two different things. Being wealthy and being joyful are two different things. Some people are wealthy, but they are sad. So we can just replace it right away, and then we now say print virtues, the fourth index, fifth element, fourth index. We're doing it by index. And if we run this, you'll see it's now this. And then when we now print the list, print virtues now, you see, print that list, it gives us, it has replaced wealth with joy. Okay, so you can just, the easy way to replace an element with something else is by index. Okay, just assign the new element to that. And this works for the methods we have discussed so far All the methods we've discussed so far in the previous video and in this video works for list of integers and floats as well, and combo and combination of all these, okay, strings, integers, floats, booleans. It works. The methods we have discussed so far, previous video and this video, regarding lists. I know I've used. I know we used. We've been doing examples with list of strings. However, it works for list of integers and list of floats as well. So the questions here, actually, question 1 was a list in Codio. This was a list of integers. Okay, but we've been doing examples with list of strings. It works the same way. Okay, we are now going. I'm going to cut out this, and we are now going to continue the rest of the questions in Codio. Question 2. Question 2. We provide you with a number n. Create a list then using a loop. Create a list then using a loop. Populate the list with n elements. Set each list element to the index multiplied by 10. Beware, we might pass in a value 0, in which case you should return an empty list. All right, folks, let's see what we can do here. I'm going to copy this code, command line code. So let's understand this question. They're going to provide us with a number n. If they provide us with 3 elements, then they want, if they provide us with 3, n equal to 3, they want 3 elements in the list. If they provide us with 4, they want 4 elements in the list. If they provide us with 0, they want an empty list, so no element in the list. Okay. What if they provide us with a negative number? So they did not say that. They didn't say if they provide us with a negative number. However, when you're writing code as a programmer, wherever you're working, your company might say, okay, this is what we want you to develop, a program that does this, does that. They just give you what they tell you what they want the program to do. Probably they don't have a programming background. Now, as a programmer, you should now add conditions. Okay, like this question now, they didn't say, what if n is negative? What if they pass a negative number? Of course, n is not going to be negative. So as a programmer, you should add that condition that what if, by mistake, let's say you were developing a program for checking people out, and what if, okay, how many people came tonight, or how many people checked in, and the cashier will just put in the number. What if the cashier made a mistake and put negative number? Okay, you should, as a programmer, you should you should take note of all the conditions that might happen. Okay, because even if you were not told by your job just tells you, okay, this is what we want. We want you to develop a program that does this. Now, as a programmer, you should now know, okay, what extra things, develop checks and balances in case somebody puts in this and it results in an error. What should happen? So we're going to consider that. Now, n is the number of elements in the list. And we cannot have a note. You can always put all these comments. It makes it easier if you're working in a team. they will easily understand what you're doing by reading the comments. We cannot have negative comments, negative numbers, negative number of elements. So n cannot be negative. N cannot be negative. Okay, let's go ahead and write that. N is an integer in this case. Okay. I'm going to call this number elements. I want to call, I don't want to use number n. I want, let me call it my own cardinality of elements. That's a set. I can say count elements. Count elements is easier that way to me. And this will be an integer. We put in an integer because this is not a list yet. N is just a number. So it's not like question 1 whereby they asked us to create a list right away. In this case, they will ask us first to input a number first. And if we input that number, then if we put 3, then it should create 3 elements in the list. Okay. If we put in 5, it should create 5 elements in the list. So count elements, integer input, you write how many elements do you want in your list, and I'm going to make that new line. Okay, now we cannot have negative elements. Okay, no negative elements, no negative number of elements. Check for negative number. Check for negative number of elements. If count elements less than 0, if it's less than 0, because less than 0 is a negative number. Okay. Print we cannot have a negative number of elements. The next one, if count elements equals 0, then let's form a variable, our number list to be an empty list. Okay, an empty list. Then print number list. Then this question says here, set each list element to the index multiplied by 10. That is if you have more than if you have at least an element in the list, set each list element to the index multiplied by 10. Okay, so let's go ahead now. I'm going to comment this out. I'm going to comment this out. Let's write this first with a for loop. Let's write this with a for loop. Let's use a for loop. We have to define the number list. Let's define a number list, okay, as an empty list. It's an empty list first. We're starting with an empty list. If we put in 0 elements, it should give us an empty list. If we put in 1 element, it should give us, if we put in n to be 1, it should give us just 1 element. And that 1 element will be index 0. We put in 2 elements, it should give us 2. If we put in n to be 2, it should give us 2 elements. First element index 0, second element index 1. So we can say this, if our count elements greater than or equal to 0. Okay? If it's greater than or equal to 0, then for our count elements in range, our count elements in range function, our count elements, what should we do next? We can append. Okay, we append the number list dot append. We've talked about the append method. Number list dot append, and we will put the count elements times 10. So let me explain what I just wrote here. If we want one count element, we have to do if we have one element in the list, it's index 0. You do 0 times 10. That gives you 0. If you have two elements in the list, then let me write it in this comment so you can see what I'm saying. Okay. Now, if we have one element, okay, one element in the list, that is index 0. So you just do 0 times 10. Okay, and that is 0. If you have two elements in the list, that is index 0 and index 1. Index 0, first element is index 0. First element is index 0. Okay. And that would be 0 times 10, which is 0. And then second element is index 1, and that would be 1 times 10, which is 1. You understand what I'm saying? Sorry, 1 times 10 is 10. 1 times 10, which is 10. Okay, so if we have two elements in the list, it should be 0, 10. If we have three elements in the list, it should be 0, 10, 20. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if we have three elements in the list, it should be, give us output 0, 10, 20. Okay, so that is what I think, that is what the question wants. So this here, we will not print this as part of the loop, so we take it up to here and we now print number list. Okay, let's test this, folks. If we have -5, we've tested it. Okay, no negative number. If we have 0, remember I commented this out because these for loops can take care of both greater than or equal to. So I put 0. It gives me empty set. You know, thank God that works. If we have one element, good, gives us only 0, good. We have two elements, 0, 10. We have three elements, 0, 10, 20. Perfecto. Gracias el Señor. So this is for loop. Let's do this with while loop. Let's do this again with while loop. So yeah, this means in the range means from 0 to the length, which is the the from 0 to the length of the list. Append, okay, multiply each element by 10. Now, let's say we are using a while loop. We say number list to be an empty set. Okay. We could say with while loop is much more lines of code. I'm going to comment this out. Let me go ahead and copy this. Anyway, let's test this first. Let's test this to make sure it works before we now. Let's test this in Codio first. So I'm going to paste this. And I used count elements. I didn't use n. So I'm going to change count elements to n. Yeah. Let's put this this first one also. Check for negative numbers. I mean, it's not going to be that, but I still want to put it. Check for negative numbers. Okay. And indentation in Codio is just how they do it here in Codio. We indent this. Okay. I now put this n, and I come here, I put n. That's the only thing. Okay, we check it. Okay, let's see. Count elements. Oh, there you go. N. There you go. We cannot have a negative number of elements. Program failed for input -2. Expected output is this. So, you know, well, okay, so they don't want me to put this. Well, if you have, they don't want me to put this. They put in -2 and they wanted an empty set. But I'm saying we cannot have a negative number of elements. That's okay. They don't want me to put it, that's fine. I remove it. I check it. Thank God now it works. Yeah, but I'm gonna leave it in my code. Because if you have a -2, that doesn't mean it's an empty set. So I'm just gonna leave it in my code. Okay. And let's go ahead, since this works, let's go ahead and copy this. I'm gonna copy this and paste it here. And I'll delete some of these so that I can have space. So this with a for loop, we've done that. Check for negative, okay. I'm going to cut out this for loop. I'll cut it, paste it, so we can have space. All right. While loop. So we set this, we have an empty set. Sorry, an empty list. I'm sorry. We have an empty list. Then we have to initialize. Let's initialize it. Okay, let's initialize it. We'll put initial to be 0. That's the extra work you do in while loop. Then we have if the count elements is greater than or equal to 0, while the initial is less than, because why did I initialize it to 0? Because we are starting with 0. The n here, they can put n to be 0. You know, in the comment they said beware, we can put n to be 0. So while the initial is less than the count elements, because the initial number of elements, we set it to be 0. That's why we set the initial equal to 0. And while this from 0 up to the count elements, number list dot append, okay, append initial times 10, and then initialize it. After that, like this is the condition. What do you do after the condition? Append. Then the increment it plus equal 1, and then print number list, and this should work. Let's see. Okay, if we have 0, empty list. If we have 3, good, see, works. If we have 7, gives us to that. That is while loop. So I'm going to come here, copy. I can go ahead and delete this one. I'll copy this. It works here. We can put the same thing in Codio and check it. If I run this now, it will mark it wrong because I'm using number list. So because I'm using count elements. So I'm gonna put this as n, put this as n, okay, and I run it. Thank God it works. That is with while loops. With while loop. Okay, I'm gonna cut this. Now, guess what, folks? Guess what? You see the lines of code we've been writing. For loop, you know how many lines of code we wrote? 1, 2, 3. You know how many lines of code we wrote in for loop? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. While loop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, just now look at this, okay? List comprehension. Another method we can use. You know, I talked to you guys about list comprehension. It is very nice, especially when you use a for loop in a list. Third method, use list comprehension. Now, guess what? So, look at what we're gonna do here, folks. We're gonna say if n greater than or equal to 0, okay, number list, because once you, I know I didn't define number list, and you asked me, okay, Mr. C, you didn't define an empty list, number list. I know. In list comprehension, you know what? Once you assign, remember in Python, if you assign something to a variable, you've defined it. So number list will be, I'm going to put my the brackets. This will be element times 10. For this is the for loop here. For element, and you see it underlined it because I didn't define it. That's fine. But if you say for element in range count elements, and then I just put print number list. Oh, do you see what I'm using n? What they used in the in Codio. If count elements is greater than or equal to 0, print number list. See that? 3 lines of code. 1, 2, 3. 3 lines of code only. See that? List comprehension. Let's run it. How many elements do we want? 0. Empty list. See that? How many? Now, you know, you can also put your check for negative numbers. I didn't even count it. You know, as you can see, I didn't even count it for for loop and while loop. Yeah, so you can do that. If I put 1, see that? If I put 3, see that? Only 3 lines of code, list comprehension. So which one do you prefer, folks? So which one do you prefer? I mean, it's up to you. For loop, while loop, list comprehension, up to you. So, but let's see let's see Codio. Let's do this in Codio. List comprehension. So this count, if you run this now, it will say that. So I'm gonna, this count elements I put n, and here I put n. Check it. Okay, it says here name number list not defined. Okay, no problem. I put an empty set, and you know you might. And let's check it again. Thank God it works. Now, some of you might say, okay, why you put it didn't run in Codio, but here, you know, I didn't define number list. I didn't assign it as an empty set. I just used it because I assigned something to it, a variable. Okay, and you see, if you remember what we talked about in Codio earlier on, so it depends on the software you're using. Okay, but if you want to put an empty set, that's fine. All right, I'm good. An empty list, not empty set. An empty list, that's fine. All right, folks, we are done with question 2. I hope you understood it. Now let's move to question 3. Trace. Create your own array of strings. Call the array anything you like, as long as it is the valid variable name. The list should contain 3 elements. The first element should contain AAA. Second element should contain BBB. Third element should contain CCC. Output the list. Okay, this one looks very, very straightforward. All right, I'm gonna paste it here. Code, comment with line codes. Oops, what did I just do now? Copy, comment with line codes. Okay. All right. So this, I think this is pretty straightforward. We'll just say, I'm gonna say I can use list because list is already an inbuilt function. So I'm not gonna use it. Okay. So I'm gonna use let's say we have element list. Since this is not number, I'm gonna just say element list to be I create the list, and then I put in AAA, BBB, and then CCC. Then I just say print element list, and that's it. I think that's it. That's what they want. Copy. Come here, paste this. Because they say we could call it anything. Yes, thank God it worked. Okay. We'll copy this. Question 3. This is question 3. I'll cut it. Come here, paste it. Next one is question 4. Simple number search. We will pass you 2 inputs. a list of numbers, and then a number n to look for. Your job is to loop through the list and find a number specified in the second input. Output the list element index where you find the number. If n is not found in the list, output -1. Remember the break statement? It exits the loop. You can, but don't have to use it. It looks like they gave us some code here already. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna copy this code they gave us, and let's try to work with it if we can. But let's paste. Let's paste this question and comment it here. So we'll comment this. Comment. I'm gonna use element integer input the, because it says a number n to look for. Okay, so I'm gonna put input what a number n to look for. What number are you looking for? What number are you looking for? Okay, I'll put this in a new, set it to display, to put the user to input in a new line. And your job is to loop through the list and find that number specified in the second input. Find a number. They'll give you a list of numbers and then a number n to look for. So look through the list and find that number in the second input. Okay, so this should actually be after you've given us the list. It should be after you've given us the list, then we should look for a number in that list. And once we find that number, put the index of that number. Okay, once you find that number, put the index of that number where you find the number. Let's see here if numbers is inbuilt. Okay, numbers is not inbuilt. I'm sorry. It was because it was written here already. Numbers is not inbuilt. So I'm going to use number here. I'm going to use number. Numbers is not inbuilt. It was because they used it here. Okay. And I'm going to use the number. Is preferable. You want to use variable names that will be easy to spell. Okay, that will be easy for someone to understand. And here I'm going to use number list. I'm going to use number list instead of numbers. I use number list. And they gave us this code already. This is number list. Okay. So they'll first of all pass this list to us. They pass this number list to us. And then we will now loop through the list and find the number. They pass the number list to us and they give us a number. We will now look at that list and find that number they gave us. If we find that number they gave us, let us now output the index of that number. And if that number is not in the list, we output -1. So it's better you understand what they're asking for. Okay, so I want to use it my own way. I'm gonna put number list, and then this is command line system files, so I'm not gonna use this. So I'll use for I in, we have to put in that number list. This is the list here, the list. Okay. I want to make sure this works in mine first. Then we now put it in Codio. We're gonna use what code we will use what Codio gives us. Okay. But I want to put it in mine first. So here for I in input, we put this as a list. So I'm going to say enter the list of numbers. Okay, enter the list of numbers. And I put this in a new, let it be in a new line. Then I put the split, because to split the elements of the list by comma. So I put that. Okay. Then if I is digit, for I in input, this, if I is digit, the number list that append integer I. Okay. Number now contains list of integers. Okay. All right. Because you've made it integers, which is correct. This is another way. That's for loop and a condition. That's fine. That's another way to make it integers. From strings, you now make it integers. This will now be the fourth way. We talked about 3 ways in the first, the part 1 of the video in loops, in a list. We talked about 3 ways. This will now be the 4th way, using a for loop and a condition. A 4th way. 4th way to convert the list of strings into integers. I'm gonna call this 4th way. 4th method. We talked about 3 methods already. You can call this the 4th method. Although I wouldn't go with this anyway. I will go with the first two methods. All right. Then we now ask, they give us this list. Okay. It treats it as string, but it will now be integers. And 4th method to convert the strings to integers. This one is longer. Then after that, they give us a number to now look for in that list. What number are you looking for in the list? Okay. Then you put in a number. And once you find it, then if that number is in the list, output the index of that number. If that number is not in the list, output -1. That is what the question is saying. All right. We're gonna write this. Let's go ahead first. I'm gonna print numbers, number list. I just want to make sure, I want to make sure that at least this actually did it. I want to make sure first that it works. Okay. So I'm gonna run this 2, 3, 5, and it puts only 2. So probably they're passing a list of numbers. So in this case, I think they are only passing in 1 because .append just one number. Enter the list of numbers. So they're just passing. I think that's probably what this is doing, because for them to give us this code, we pass in 2 and it puts it like this. We pass in 3. For them to give us this code, they give us just a list of 1 element, list of numbers, and then a number n to look for, and then I'll put that. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. Now this is the number, what we are looking for, Okay, then we will now write this code here. We have a condition, a conditional statement here. If number in number list, if number in number list, okay, print number list dot index. Remember we've talked about this method, dot index of that number. Okay, print the number list dot index of that number. Else if not number in number list, if it's not elif, not else if, which is elif, not number in number list, print -1. All right, let's test this. If I have 2, if I'm putting 2, then index is 0. If I have 2 and I put 3, then it will print out -1. This is probably what they're looking for. Let's see. We are going to do this. I'm not going to call this fourth method. I will not, because they're using append. They're using append, so I'm not going to call it fourth method. I will not. Let's still stick by the 3 methods we discussed in the first video. So because they're using append here, which means they are putting it at the back of the list. You know, appending means you put it at the back of the list. So let's go ahead and copy this. I'm gonna copy this. I'll paste it here and then I'll modify it. Instead of sys.this, copy, I will put it here in this. Let's test this first and see what they want us to do. Let's see what they're looking for. And then this n, I'm just gonna call this n number list. Well, I'm gonna call it number. I'll call it number. And then this, I'm going to comment out this. I'll comment this out. Okay, let's run this. Line 24. Oh, I see here. I already have the number here, so let me comment this out. Okay, comment this one out. Because they're using the system files, they're using the command line. So I'll check this. Expected output is -1, but my program output, yeah, I printed out this. That's the thing. My program output is this, and I print -1. Oh, let me comment this out. This one out. Okay, check it. Thank God, this works. So what they are wanting us to do is we just put a number in the list. We start with an empty list. Okay, then put a number in that list and then print the index of that number. I think that's what they want. Okay, but that was not what I was thinking though. So we are going to this works. I'm going to copy all this, Control A, Control C, and paste this here. And let's just do something else. Let's just write it the way I think it should be. How about it? What I'm thinking about is this, okay? They give us number list. They give us, they ask us to create a list. We create the list. We put in the list. And then they ask us for a number. We put in the number. And then they go through all those. I'm not going to use append. I will not use append. Let's do it another way. So I'm gonna delete this. We'll say number list equal to input, give us the list, enter the list of numbers, okay, dot split, separate with comma. And then, actually, I'll call this numbers. Let me call it numbers. So that my number list, this is by string. It puts it as string. So we discussed this in part 1. So that my number list, which I want to use, will be, we can use the list comprehension, or we can use the map function. So I'm just gonna let's use the map function, list map integers to those numbers, okay? And of course, if we print this number list, if we print the number list, just to make sure, print numbers and then print number list. So if we have 2, 3, 5, 7, it should give us this. This is the numbers as strings, and then this is the number list as integers. You see that? Okay. I'll comment this print function out. I'll comment it out. Now, the next thing is, it will now ask us to enter the number we want to search. So I'm going to call this number integer because it's an integer. Input. In this case, we are dealing with integers, okay? Input. What number are you looking for? What number are you looking for? And then I put that in a new line. Okay, then I'm going to write the conditional statement if number a number list, okay, print the number list dot index of that number, of the number. So what I can do is I can put this, I can make it nice. The index of the number in the list, the index of the number in the list is, I put that, elif not number, a number list, elif, or I can say else, okay? I can say else, or I can say elif. I can even say just else. Else, print the number is not in the list. The number is not in the list. The number is not in the list. So let's test this. So if I have 2, 3, 5, 7, or 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, what number are you looking for? Let's say 5. The index of the number in the list is 2. See that? The index of the number in the list is 2. So do you see that, how it works? And then if this is what I was thinking, you know, that that day we are asking for. And if I enter 2, 3, 5, 7, 10, and I'm looking for 4, it will say the number is not in the list. Comprende? Understand that? Now, what if we, if we want to make this very nice, we can actually make this interesting. The index of, we can make this interesting like this. Let's play with this a bit. The index of, I put the braces. The index of this in the list is, I put the braces again, and then I put a comma. I put this dot format. The first guy will be the number that you put in, number, and then the second guy will be number list dot index number. So I want it to say the index of 5 is 2. That's what I want. So 2, 3, 5, 7, 10. The index of 5 is 2. So I put in 2, 3, 5, 7, 10. What number are you looking for? 5. The index of 5 in the list is 2. You see that? See that? Okay. I'm going to copy this, cut it. So we are done with question 4. We are getting there. All right, the next one. Clear this. Question 5. Okay. We will pass in a list of numbers. Your job is to find the largest number in that list and output its index, not the actual value. You will need to use a utility variable to store the maximum value and a decision to see if each number is bigger than the current maximum value encountered in previous iterations. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Paste this, comment this. All right. They will give us a list of numbers. Okay, they give us a list of numbers. Then we would find the largest number in that list and output the index. But not that number. Okay. All right. They gave us. They used the list comprehension. That's fine. We can do that. I'm gonna copy this, but we're gonna do it our own way. Okay. Numbers is this. Instead of this system argument command, output, input, enter the list of numbers. Put it in a new line. All right, and I'll call this number list because it's changed. I gave you, I gave you the reason why I like using a new variable to do that. All right, so they gave us this number list, and then we have to find the largest number in the list. Then we will output the index, but not the value of that number. That's okay. We have a function that can do it. But let's test this to make sure that this actually makes it as integers. Print number list. So if I have 3, 4, 1, 7. Okay, that's right. Works. I'm going to comment out this print to make sure at least we now have a list of integers. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do here is there are several ways we can find the maximum element in a list. Max. We have what we call a max function. Several ways we can do this. Let's look at first method of solving this question. Let's do it several ways, okay? We're gonna use inbuilt function, using an inbuilt function, a built-in function, using built-in function. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say for any number, I'm gonna use number in number list. Now I didn't use numbers. I can make, well, let me just say element. Okay, so it doesn't confuse you, because some people will say numbers in number. No, for element in number list. Okay, a for loop. We have that the maximum element, the max element, I'm gonna call it max element, will be the max function. We have the max function, okay, max of that number list. Okay, and then the index of the max element would be the number list dot index of that max element. Okay, number list dot index of that max element, and we just print. We can print the max element, and then we print the index of the max element, if we want to do it that way. Okay, and then when you run it, enter the list of numbers. Let's say we have 3, 10, 12, 4, -2, because they can pass negative numbers. They can, right? Okay, there you go. Max element is 12 and the index is 2. See that? It works. We can say the largest element, the largest number in the list is that, and then the index of the largest number, the index of that largest number, the index of the largest number in the list is this. Okay, that's it. If we have 0, 4, -5, 12, 50, 17, 23, 45. See that? Largest number in the list is 45, index is 7. I think this is just what they want. So first method is using a built-in function. Now, there is something I also want to talk about since we talked about this. But let's go ahead and test this. Let's go ahead and paste this here. I'm just gonna put numbers here. Numbers. And then print max element, and then print index max element. They want us to find only the index, I know. So this will be wrong, I know. I'm gonna put numbers, and then they want us to find only the max element, the index. So I'll comment this out and check it. Thank God it works now. All right. I want us, since we talked about this maximum element, I want us to talk about some other things, since that is the essence of this video, to discuss several things as well. We can, when we're given a list, we have what we call a enumerate function. If we want to find the list of elements and the indices of each element, okay, we can use a enumerate function to find the indices of each the elements and the indices of each element. So I'm going to make comments here because I want us to do this, and then we'll talk about the second method. So to list the elements of a list and the indices of each element, we can use the enumerate function. Enumerate function, okay, is a function, a built-in function in Python. So we could just do, okay, we could do this. We could say for element in number list, okay, for element in number list. Now, if we use this enumerate function, just keep in mind that index is listed first. Take note, listed first. And then element is listed second. Listed second. Just take note of that. When we use enumerate function, index is listed first, element is listed second. So we could say for element in enumerate, for element in enumerate, and we put number list, okay, put colon, print the index of the element and the element. Yeah. Or you can just say print element, it doesn't matter. So I don't come to define this. Print element. I'm gonna run this, and list of numbers, let's say we have 2, 3, 5. Okay, as you can see, it is this print element. It gives you the index. Element 2 is index 0, element 3 is index 1, element 5 is index 2. You see that? Okay, so it mustn't, you just say for element in enumerate number list, print element. It gives you this list, and just know that the first is index, and the second is the element. And if you want, you can make this to be on one line. You can say and to be this. Make it to be on one line. So 2, 3, 5, and you have this. If you want it horizontally instead of vertically, you can use this command. So element 2 is index 0, element 3 is index 1, element 5 is index 2. That is using the enumerate function. Okay? Now, that now takes us to second method. And we're going to use a library, Now, first method we used built-in function max, and then .index method. We use both. First method is using built-in function and built-in method. Built-in method. Built-in method. Because max is the function and .index is the method. We talked about this in the previous video. Okay. Second method is using a library. So this is what we can do. If we're using a library, the first thing we do is we can import. So I'm going to import. Actually, we've pasted question 5. Okay, so I'm going to remove this. We can import, because we're going to import the library, and we're going to import operator. Import operator. Okay. So what we will do is we will say that index will define this index maximum element, and then maximum element is equal to max enumerate number list. So at least you've seen how I use the enumerate. Number list key equal to operator dot item getter. Get the items, item getter, pass argument 1. Okay. So we've just defined this, and we used the operator library. Okay. And we also use the max function, using a library and a function and a built-in function. Using a built-in function and a library. Second method, using a built-in function and a library. So this is how we find it, and then we can now say print the largest element. The largest element is max element, and then print the index of the largest element is index max. This is another way, second method. Okay, so we do this 2, 3, 5, and it gives this to us. Okay, the largest element is 5, the index of the largest element is 2. Okay, so second method. You know what I'll comment this out. So we have 2, 3, 5, largest element 5, index of the largest element 2. Okay. So I'm going to cut all these out. Okay. Now, what if, because I want us to look at all cases, that is why we're doing this video. What if we can write our own without having to use, without inbuilt function? Okay, I don't want to use built-in function. I don't want to do that. What if I don't want to use built-in function? Okay, now we're gonna look at something I will teach you now. The lowest possible number, the least possible number is something we call float. Float, negative infinity, negative INF, negative infinity. This is the least possible number in a list, in the list. Okay, the least possible number in a list. is this float infinity. Negative, I mean float negative infinity. That's the least possible number in the list. So what we could do, because I want us to write this without having to use library or without having to use a built-in function. Okay, so this is third method, and I'm going later on we'll discuss these methods and I'll tell you, what can this do, what can this do. Okay, now this third method, first of all, we can go ahead first and define size to be the length of the number list. Okay, the length function, we've talked about that. And then we will set the maximum element. We'll set the maximum element to be the list number, float negative infinity. Okay, float negative infinity. We'll set it to be the least number in that list. So take note of this. The least possible number in a list is float parenthesis double quotes or single quotes negative infinity. All right. Then we will set the index of that maximum element to be 0, because of course let's set the index of the maximum element to be 0. All right. Now we'll write a for loop for element in number list. For element in number list, if element is greater than the max element. If that element is greater than the max element, okay, then set the max element to be that element. Set it to be the max. Set it to be the element. Okay. Let's test this. So if we print max element, let's test this. If we have 2, 3, 5, you see that 5 is the maximum element. If we have negative 12, 4, 7, 34, 2. 34 is the max element. Okay, so this works. Let's comment this out. Now, this is for the max element. Let's find that. Let's do the same thing for the index. So we write another for loop for index in, because there's no index is not built in. So we use that for index in range size. Some people will use len of number list, that's fine, but I like to define my variables. So for index in that range, if number list at that index, okay, equal, because the maximum element, if the number list at that index is equal to the maximum element, okay, then what do? We now have that the index maximum element should be that index. See that? And then we can go ahead and print index maximum element. Okay? So we have 2, 3, 5, 7, 4, 10, 12, 7. 7. Okay? See that maximum element is 12 and the index is 6. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? Third method, and that is without library, without built-in function. okay, and without library. That's the third method. Just using for loop and conditional statements. Using for loops and conditional statements. Okay, now there's something. This works for this, okay? But what if you have this? What if you have this? Let's say you have 3 7 7 4 2. Okay, you see this here. We have 2 instances. I'm going to put this. What if you have more than one instance? More than one instance of the largest number. What do you do? Because with this third method, as you can see, it gave we have 2 instances of the largest element. The largest element is 7. The largest element is 7. So 3 is index 0, this 7 is index 1, this 7 is index 2. This gives the second instance of the largest number. Third method, okay, this outputs the second instance. It outputs the last instance. It outputs the index of the last instance of the largest number. And folks, guess what? That's the third method. The third method is not giving us, because 7 is, there are 2 instances of 7. But this is only giving us the last instance, the index of that last instance of 7. Because this is 0, 1, 2, which is 2. Okay. Now, this third method, that is what is giving us. All right. And sometimes it's not what you want, or sometimes that's not what the professor wants. I'm going to cut this. I'll cut it. But at least it gives us an instance. I mean, if there is only one instance, it works well. Now let's check the second method using library. Let's check the second method. I'm gonna come here and paste it again. I'll paste it here. Run. If we have 3 5 7 3 7 4, so the largest element is 7. Okay, first instance 0 1 2, index is 2. Second instance, then 3 4, index is 4. Let's see. We run this. We enter. So it gives us the first instance. And that is probably what Codio wants. First instance. Because this is the first method. We're going to check it. This gives us the first index of the first instance. This outputs the index of the first instance in a case whereby index of the first instance of the largest number. Okay, if you have, in a case, I'm going to cut this. I'm gonna cut this and paste here. This gives us the index of the first instance. So I will cut this and repaste it. That's the second method. Gives us the index of the first instance. Come back here, paste it. And I'm going to copy this here and come here and paste it. Control S, save it. Let's check the first method. First method is this here. first method, that's the one that that we used for Codio. Okay, I paste it here. We run it. We have 257475. This also gives us the it also gives us the index of the first instance. See that? And that's the one that Codio wants. What if we have more than one instance of the largest number? This gives us the index of the first instance. The second method gives us the index of the first instance. The third method gives us the index of the last instance. Okay. We'll come here and I will copy this and paste here also, because it gives us that the Control S. All right. But what if I want the indices of all instances of the largest element? I want the indices of all instances of the largest element. Okay, that is what I want. I want the indices of all instances of the largest element. So that brings us to fourth method. So we're gonna use the list comprehension. You see, I told you about the list comprehension. And that is nice, list comprehension. So actually we'll use a function and a list comprehension. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do here. We'll say that we have the maximum element. The maximum element is we use the max function to get the maximum element. Okay, then the index of that maximum element, remember we are going to it's where we use the list comprehension. Remember that in the enumerate, we talked about the enumerate. Okay, we say that the first is the index and then the second is the element. Okay, the first is the index, the second is the element. So we will have index max element is equal to, we use the list comprehension, we use index for index and element in enumerate. When we use enumerate, the list of that number list. Okay, but here we're gonna put a condition. The index is the first, the second is the element. Now that condition is this index of the maximum element is the index, okay, for both the index and the element in this number list. Or you can just say for element in the number list. Okay, we already know that the index is the first anyway, but here we need to specify both of them because we want to make sure that we have a conditional statement here if the element equal maximum element. If the element equal maximum element. So we really need these two here. Okay, that index for index, which is the first one, then this element, the index maximum element is gonna be this index. Okay, for both these two, for the whenever we use enumerate, the first one is the index anyway. So index for this index, and then the element here in this enumerate, if this element is equal to the maximum element, then get this index. Just like that. Okay. And then let's print it. Let's print max element and then print index of the max element. Let's test this. So if we have 2, 3, 7, 4, 7, 5. Okay? See that? You see, the max element is 7. The indices, we can say here, we can say the largest element, the maximum element is max element, and then the indices of the maximum element is, okay, let's run it. 2, 3, 5, 7, 4, 7, 1, 3. Okay, maximum element is 7. Indices of the maximum element is 3, 5. Cool, right? Is that cool? Cool, right? So this gives us the entire indices, which is nice. I like that. List comprehension. We can also have a fifth method. We can also have a fifth method. And still use list comprehension. We can have the fifth method of solving the same thing. We're gonna use a function and list comprehension. Okay, so in this case, we will say that the index maximum element will be index, okay, for index in range size of the list. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and define size. Size is the length of the list, number list, okay? So index for index in that range if the number list at that index, if the number list at the index at that index equal maximum element. Oh yeah, let's go ahead and define maximum element. Max element is the max of the number list. So if the index of the maximum element is the index for index in the range, okay, that's which is the size of the list, if the number list at that index is the maximum element. Okay, and we can say print max element and then print index of the max element. So 5 methods of solving this, but this fifth method is also all instances. Okay, it outputs all instances. It outputs the indices of all instances of the largest element. Largest number. Okay, let's run this. So if we have 2, 3, 7, 4, 7, 1, gives it to you also. So isn't it nice to know you have at least the whole 5 methods outputs, you know, the whole 5 methods work if they are if you don't have more than one instance of the largest number. You have 5 methods working that. Isn't it nice, right? Okay, Then for all instances for the indices of all instances of the largest element, at least we have these two methods that work. Then the third method works for the last the index of the last instance of the largest element, and the first two methods work for index of the first instance of the largest element. You can write yours too. You can explore more and write yours too. It took me time to find out all these, it took me time. So you can explore more too. Question 6. We are passing in 3 inputs: a list of numbers, a multiplier value m, a value n. You should multiply every nth element. Do not multiply the 0th element by m. So if n is 3, you start with the third element, which is index 2. If there are less than n elements, then you should output the unchanged input list. All right. And they gave us this code to convert the strings to integers. Okay. I'm going to use my own code. Yeah, this is the third we talked about this. This is the third method of converting the strings to integers. We talked about it in the first video. All right, folks, let's write this. I'm gonna paste it here and code comment. Let's see what they want us in this code. What do they want? So they'll give us a list of numbers. They'll give us a multiplier value, and then they'll give us a value n. So we will multiply every nth element by m. Okay? All right, so I'm gonna write this: numbers, input, enter the list of numbers. Enter the list of numbers. Put it in a new line. All right, dot split, because it's a list. Split by comma. So our number list is what I liked to use. Would be we can use the map function, map, okay, integer numbers. Yeah, if you also want to use the second method, that's fine. All right, now we discussed these three methods in the first video. All right, the next thing, we'll have the size. Let's have the size. Size is the length of the number list. Then let's write our first code. If the value, we will now, they'll give us this, the list of numbers. They give us a multiplier. So let's go ahead and write the multiplier. Multiplier m is also an integer. Okay, integer input. What is the multiplier? What is the multiplier? Let's put it in a new line. And then we'll have the n value, the value n. So value, I'll call it value. It's also going to be an integer. Input. What is the value? Like this value is the nth element. The nth element. So uh, the what is the nth element? Okay, third element. So can I call it what is the value or nth element? Okay, put it in a new line. All right, inside the quotes. Okay, then we will need this size, okay, because we're gonna write we'll write some conditions. So we'll have the size, the length of the list. Then let's write the first condition. If the value is 0, because they said do not multiply the 0th element by m. So if the value is 0, if the 0th element is the n, okay, the 0th element means n equal to 0. So if that value is 0, print there is no 0th element. We don't have any 0th element. Okay? Then let's now have our new number list. Make it an empty list. And then we'll have some conditional statements. If the size is greater than or equal to value, okay, print the number list only. Like, if what I mean by this is if the size is greater than or equal to the value, just print the number list, because it says here if there are less than n elements, then you should output the unchanged input list. Just output the unchanged input list. I'm sorry, this should be less than, less than. If the size is less than the value, if the size is less than the value, it should be less than. Okay, if there are less than n elements, then output the unchanged input list. So let's run this first and see. Let's run this for these two conditions. Then we can write the third condition. So the list of numbers, let's start with 2, 3, 5, 7. Multiplier, let's say 4. 0, 0th element. There is no 0th element. Good. It works for the 0th element. Okay. Now, the next condition, if there are less than n elements, then you should output the unchanged input list. So let's run this. We have 2, 3, 5, 7. Multiplier, let's say 3. It's 4 elements in the list. 4 elements in the list. So let's put 3. If size is less than the value, okay, so let's put 5, because there are 4 elements in the list. The size is 4 and the value now is 5. So it should just print the number list as is, just like that. Okay, good. That works good. Now the next one will be if size is greater than or equal to the value. What do they want us to do here? They want us to multiply every nth element by m. Okay, so if size is greater than or equal to value, okay, then for index in range of this size, because index starts from 0. Okay, index starts from 0 up to, because when you're using the range function, it's from 0 up to that. If you specify it like this, if it has only one argument, we talked about this in conditional statements. Okay, so for index in range of that size, then index value, index value, the index value, because they want us to multiply every uh, every nth element by m. So we will say that the index value will have a variable. Index value should be number list at index. Okay. Then we have another one, product. Let's form another variable because you have to multiply the index value, multiply the index value by the multiplier. Okay. And then when you do that, index value times multiplier, then we will now have another, because for index in this range, this is what should happen. We are using a for loop. This is a for loop. Okay, we'll find the number at that index. If it's the third element, is second index. Fourth element is third index. Okay, we have to find the number at that index, then multiply, put it as a variable index value, and multiply it by m. We call that product. Then we'll say, okay, we'll now say that if index plus 1 is, if you divide it and there's no remainder, okay, this is the percent sign. So it says we have to find, multiply every nth element by m. So if n is 3, start with the third element, which is index 2, which means you multiply the third element, you multiply the sixth element, you multiply the ninth element. So if there is no remainder, if you find the index plus 1 and you divide it by the value and there is no remainder, which means equals 0, then the new number list dot append product. So for every when you, I'm trying to kind of explain this so you can really understand this. You multiply, if n is 3, so you have to multiply the third element, then multiply the sixth element, then you multiply the ninth element. Okay, and the third element is index 2. The sixth element is index 5. The ninth element is index 8. So when we come and we find that, after finding the if we see that if we have like 5 elements in the list, okay, and the multiplier, let's say the multiplier is 2, but the value is 2, that means multiply the second element, which is index 1, and the fourth element, which is index 3. You can, and you stop. However, when you have a list like 6, okay, if you don't have any remainder, then keep on appending it. Okay, you add the product. Like if there's no remainder when you divide it, if the size, okay, if the size of that element, or if the size of that list is if divisible by the value, then you keep on. That's what this is about here, because this is actually the size of the list. Like the when you consider the fact that the size, that when you use range, it means up to the last. Okay, this is actually this is taken as each. If you have an even list, an even numbered list, okay, you keep on until the end. You keep on multiplying the product. You keep on until the end. That's what this conditional statement is about. Okay. If the value is a factor of the list, then you keep on appending, multiplying and appending the product. Otherwise, else, if it's not a factor, okay, your new number list dot append only the index value only. So this is what it's saying. You have a list that is, let's say, 5 elements in the list, and you want to multiply by every third value. Your value is 3. With 5 elements in the list, you can only multiply the third value only. But if you have 6 elements in the list, then you multiply the third value and the 6th value. I'm gonna show you some. Let's go ahead and print the product. I'll do it here. Print product, and then print new number list. Okay, let's see this. Let's run this and see. So let's say we have 2, 4, 5, 3, 1. We have a list that has 5 elements. Multiplier, let's use 7 as the multiplier, which means 7 times 2, 7 times 4, 7 times 5, 7 times 3, 7 times 1. Okay, but in this case, let's have our value, the nth element, to be 3. So what this will do is, that third element is 5, index 2. It will only do 7 times 5, which is 35. And it will keep the rest. 2, 4, 35, 3, 1 will be the new list. 2, 4, 35, 3, 1. You see that? So if, you know, if you see that the value is a factor, then just keep on appending the product. Otherwise, and this here, remember we talked about this, about replacing. We talked about if you want to replace something, you just assign it to that. I think we replaced wealth with joy. If you just do joy equal to virtues, and you put this bracket and you put wealth, it replaces it. Okay, that's the index value to be this. So that's, if you see that the value is a factor of this, then append the new product. Otherwise, just put it index value. Just leave it as, just leave it as is. Now, this is with a list of 5 elements. Let's have list of 6 elements. If we have 2, 3, 5, 4, 2. List of 4, 2, 5. List of 6 elements. Multiplier, let's use 10 as the multiplier. And let the value be 3. So this will be, it will multiply the third value and the 6th value. So 2, 3, 50, 4, 2, 50. 2, 3, 50, 4, 2, 50. You see that? So that is the thing. That is, I think that is what the question is asking us for. That's what the question is asking us for. So let's go ahead and try this. Let's go ahead and try this here. Copy. Okay. So looks like I will make several. I'll make several changes. Number list is numbers. Okay. I will leave it as new number list. Leave as size. Value is n. And multiplier is m. Value is n. And then I will just comment this. Comment the product because I don't think they need it. All right, let's check it. Okay, value, line 16. Yeah, value is n. Check it. Value n. Check it again. Number list. Number list is the numbers. Numbers is number list. Okay. Check it. Number list, line 22. Yeah, numbers. Numbers. But I'm going to leave new number list. Yeah. Thank God it works. Yeah. All right. I hope you understood it. This is the first method actually. In case if you don't like this. This is the first method actually. So I'm going to call this first method. First method of solving this problem. Let's look at another way we can solve this. Okay. Now, what if you have the multiplier? Let's write this 2, 3, 5 and multiplier is 10. What if you have n to be 1? Okay, that tells you just every first element. Okay, 10 times 2, 20, 10 times 3, 30, 10 times 5, 50. That's what it means. Okay, let's look at the second. Gonna copy this. Come here and paste it. Let's do another way. How about it? And guess what? Guess what the way I want to do is. Guess what? The way I want to use. If you can guess right. Least comprehension. Least comprehension. Second method. I'm gonna call this second method. Use a least comprehension. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this equal 0. I'll leave it, and this new number list I'm gonna just delete from here. Okay, so I will put new number list because once I assign it to something, I have defined that variable. So I'll put new number list equal to index value times multiplier. Okay, if the index plus 1 is a multiple, okay, of the value, which means equals 0. Now, this is remembered to be 0. That's how this, where is that? Operators. If you look at operators, because you say, some people will say what's the percent distance? It's operators. It is the remainder. The remainder. It means the remainder. That's the if the remainder is 0, okay, which is the modulo. If the modulo gives you the remainder, okay, so that means if the remainder is 0, that's what it means. So if the remainder is 0, which means that the value is a factor of this index index, okay. So else index value for index value in enumerate number list. Now you see this line of code. Let me, you know what, let's cut out this so you see what I'm saying. All this line of code here, actually from here, look at this here. Look at all this line of code. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm not going to count this one. Then 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And you have it, 11 lines of code. You have it in only one line here only. Okay. Because as you can see here, it's index value times multiplier. If the remainder, when you divide this, index plus 1 divided by value, if value is a factor of this, which means the remainder is 0, okay, if value is a factor of this, index plus 1, else just put index value, okay, for both index and index value in enumerate number list. Just one line of code as against 11 lines of code. Can you imagine that? And then you just print new number list. Okay, I'm going to now delete this. So we print this. If we have 2, 3, 5, multiplier is 10, end value is 1, gives you that 20, 30, 50. If we run it again, if we have 2, 3, 5, 7, let's say the multiplier is 10, and let's say the let's say if the size is less than the value, so let's have value to be 8. It still gives you the output list just like that. I mean, even though you didn't put that condition, but this list comprehension takes care of that. Isn't it nice? The only thing you have to put here is just this one. See? If you do it again, let's say we have 3, -4, 5, 10, 2, -5. And then multiplier, let's say multiplier is 6. End value, let's say every second element, so n2. See that? So 6 times -4 is -24. You have 3 unchanged. Every second value, 6 times -4, -24. 5 unchanged. 6 times 10, 60. 2 unchanged. 6 times -5, -30. Okay, that's the second method. All right, come here and paste it. Okay, let's get back to this. 7th question 7. Question 7. Question 7. We are passing in a list of numbers. You need to create 2 new lists in your chart. Then put all odd numbers in one list. Put all even numbers in the other list. Output the odd list first, the even list second. Tip: you should use the modulo operator to decide whether the number is odd or even. Of course, the modulo operator we talked about, modulo, it's the remainder. It's the remainder. So if the remainder is 0, if you divide by 2, if you divide something by 2, if the remainder is 0, that means that is an even number. If you divide a number by 2 and the remainder is 0, that means that number is an even number. If you divide a number by 2 and the remainder is not 0, that means the number is an odd number. So this percent sign is the modulo. It means the remainder. The remainder when A is divided by B, the remainder. So when n is divided by 2, if it's 0, then put is even. If it is not 0, then put is odd. Okay? Don't forget to define the 2 new lists before you start adding elements to them. All right, folks, let's do this. Copy this, paste here. Make comments. All right, so they gave us let's use what they said we provided a function for you to call that does this. Okay, I'm gonna use my own for here. Now they talked about function. Okay, so they kind of jumped ahead of me talking about function because we've not discussed functions. And I don't want you to get confused. We're still gonna talk about functions. But as you can see here, they used define. The def is define. This function is even is the function. And it takes an argument. Okay? You can easily call that function. Like, I wanted to talk about function in a completely different video. But they've talked about it already here. Okay. So let's say this. Look at this, for instance. Define is even and return this. So if I come here and I say is even and I put 5, I can say print is even 5, and I run this. It will return false, a boolean, which means that 5 is not an even number. Okay, if I say print is even 6, it will return true, which means that 6 is an even number. Okay, so you can easily call the function for anything you want. You can even say print is even 7 minus 4. You see, even though if you look at this, even though it takes one argument, but see, I already put 7 minus 4, which is 3, and it will give false. So you can even do things in the argument. Okay. So with a function, you can easily, it's reusable. You can easily reuse it. It's reusability. You can easily reuse it. All right. So they gave us this. We are going to use what they gave us. We are going to actually, we will first of all use our own. I want to use my own. This is the third method. Okay, but I want to use my own. I just want to use my own. So what we're gonna do, we will they pass us the list of numbers. So say numbers input, say enter the list of numbers. Enter the list of numbers. Put this in a new line, and then the split. Put a comma, and then our number list. Have a number list. We've been using the map function. Let's use the second method. Where's that second method? The second method we talked about we talked about that method in the first video. Okay, list comprehension, that's what I'm gonna use. Okay, integer, number list is integer of elements for elements in numbers. Okay, using list comprehension. So for some reason I like list comprehension. Okay, so they gave us this function. See, you see all this now is this. They used like third method. So you can convert the strings to integers. They gave us the is even. So let's go ahead and define is odd. Let's go ahead and write our own again. Is odd. And if I point my this thing here, it says function name should be lowercase. Okay, that's why it's signaling it. Function name should be lowercase. If I come here and I click more, if I come here and click more, this inspection highlights redundant parentheses in statements. Okay, I'm going to remove this parentheses. And let me make this function name to be lowercase. It's even, it's odd. You see it has stopped that. It has typo in word is odd. Spell checker. Oh, typos. Anyway, it's even, it's odd. It doesn't matter. Let's make it camel case. It's not a problem. Now we should return n, the remainder when n is divided by 2 is not equal to 0. It's not equal to 0. This means it's not equal. Okay, it means it's not equal. Okay, so we've defined that function is odd. The next thing we will do is we are now going to make just 2 new lists. We'll make 2 new lists. They want us to output the odd list first and then even list second. So we'll write odd numbers. We'll make 2 new lists. Odd numbers to be this list, empty list, and then even numbers. We'll make an empty list. Then we'll write a condition for element in numbers. Okay, I'm gonna put here integer element for element in numbers. Okay, for element in a number list, not numbers now. For element in a number list, if is odd, if it's odd element, if that element is odd, okay, then append. If that element is odd, then append it to the odd numbers list. That append the element. Okay, for element in this number list, if that element is, because they want us to output the odd numbers first, odd numbered list first, then the even numbers second. So for element in that number list, if that element is odd, put it in the list for odd numbers. Append. Elif, else if it's even, it's even. Okay. If that element is even, append it to even number list. Even numbers dot append that element. Okay. Then after that, what do? Print odd numbers, print even numbers. Make sure it is not part of the list. That's why we put it here, the print. Okay. All right, folks, let's test it. Let's run it. So if we have 2, 3, 5, 4, 10. Okay, the first one is that we can kind of make it nice by putting the odd numbers in the list. The odd numbers in the list are and then we put here the even numbers in the list are, put that. Okay, so if we put 1, 3, 5, 2, 10, the odd numbers in the list are 1, 3, 5. The even numbers in the list are 2, 10. List. I'm gonna put this list here. Okay. Now, what if we have 0? The odd numbers in the list, empty list. Even numbers in the list, 0. See that? Okay, I think that's what they want. That is, I think, what they want. So let's go ahead and paste it here. So I'm going to modify things. I'll modify this numbers. Number list is numbers. And they probably don't want us to write it like this. Let's see. Let's run it. It's odd, it's not defined. Oh yes, I defined it here. I just didn't copy it. Okay, I copy it now. Okay, run it. Okay, they just don't want me to put the odd numbers in the list. Okay, no problem. I put it, I just print this, print that, remove that, and then run it. Yeah, thank God it ran. Okay. All right, I'm gonna come here and copy it. Copy all this, and then I paste it. So that is what they want us to do. All right. Okay, it's completed. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this video. Watch out for other ones. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And you have a good night.